definition alone, they're inferior films. Films.
Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck.
Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequels Suck, the podcast all about sequels, prequels, remakes, everything but the original. And today I'm genuinely shocked by the film that we're talking about. Anyone who is listening to our sort of year-end wrap-up that we did just before the end of 2024, we talked about our favourite sequels and prequels and remakes for the years. And my number one was the film which is called Prequel to The Wizard of Oz. And I mentioned the fact that we would never talk about it in the show because when I messaged Cable to say, hey, just, keep it in the back of our brains, Wicked is a prequel, Cable's one-word response was, yuck. So imagine my surprise when I say today on the show, we're talking about the box office phenomenon, Wicked. Cable, welcome to Shiz. How you going, mate?
Yeah, yeah, good. It's weirdly surprising. Yeah, this is a 50-50 split of a podcast. So you wanted to watch it, we wanted to talk about it, and I can't begrudge you wanting to talk about the film. So I was happy to oblige and go and see Wicked with I knew the gist of it. It's the theatre production has been been around for a while now, and just pop culture, you would have to have been in a coma for a fair amount of time to not know roughly what it was about in the scheme of The Wizard of Oz. And so I went in with a little bit of information, but pretty much blind, so which was always interesting. And the most I probably knew that was there was a couple of actors I knew that were going to be in it as well. So it's interesting. I didn't think I would be talking about it, but I was very happy to oblige, like I said.
So you said that you got around to seeing it. How did you watch it? Did you get to theatres to see it, or did you watch it on home release?
It was one of those ones, unfortunately, just with school holidays and kids that were sort of not really wanting to see it or didn't know enough about it. It was an Amazon Prime, pay-per-view or rental, and surprise, surprise, a child really loved it. And so now there's interest. There's interest there. Mm-hmm. There's a fascination with Ariana Grande from me as well, but a daughter. And it's opened up this whole new world.
It's a whole new world. It's an exciting world. It's funny. I think with this film, we get a lot of people. Wicked sort of faithful people who love the stage musical, who have seen the stage musical of years. I'm one of them. I've always been a fan of this. I've seen it staged the last 2 times it's come to Australia. And then the other camp, people sort of. There's people who are split in their way that they've come to it and how they feel about it. And there's people who don't like musicals, and there's people who do love The Wizard of Oz. And those camps have varying sort of approaches to this. So I know that you didn't really come about with the musical, but were you a fan of The Wizard of Oz coming into this? Is this a movie that it's one of
the original Wizard of Oz?
Is that a movie that means a lot to you?
Yes, 100%. When I think about all the movies I saw as a kid that I remember, like the earliest memories, it was A New Hope, E.T., and Wizard of Oz are like just so vivid in my memory. I can remember where I saw all those films as well, like that the house I was at, where I was sat down as a really young kid and going, here's a TV, watch this movie kind of thing. So, but my mum was a very passionate Wizard of Oz fan, and that was her movie as well. And I think that's a thing from most probably generations that it's handed down from their parents as well. It's just such a classic. So I probably had it taped on. It was on a Saturday night back in the day when big movies were on TV. It was introduced by Bill Collins or Ivan I've forgotten. Ivan. Why have I got a? I've got a mental blank on his surname, but
I can't
there used to
remember.
be these movie guys that would introduce these movies, talk about it for about 10 minutes, and then the movie would come on. I still remember we had it taped off TV on Betamax, and that got played that much. It's crazy. So there's this big love. I don't even know if I've really talked about it that much because we did talk about Return to Oz, which again is Disney's sort of take on sort of not quite a musical sequel, but which is funny because The Wizard of Oz is a musical and
Yes.
movie, and that was I'm not saying I'm going to get confused. I probably should have researched this. I do remember. So there was the books, and then the version we get as a movie is actually from the stage play that was adapted from the stories. Is that correct?
Yes,
From your
that
memory,
is
yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, which is ironically enough, this is how Wicked has evolved as well. Wicked is a take on the characters from the books, made into a theatre thing, become so popular now it's a film as well. So, there's a
Well,
bit
it's
of
based on a
symmetry
book, so it was a
there.
book first. There's a series of
Yeah.
books.
Well, sorry. Yes.
all
There was a
about,
book. Yeah.
Alphabet and the Wings, and then so much like the original. And I think it's some people are slightly confused, and I know this because I went to see. I got to see this in the cinemas twice, and it's my daughter and I went to the stage musical earlier this year, and it's become her obsession. 3 films, so now there's a film that's out of this world. So we had to go see it a couple of times. I saw it at the Sun Theatre in Yarraville, which is a fantastic cinema, and then I also saw it in IMAX in 3D.
Oh wow.
Which is, it was fun, but it wasn't filmed to be in 3D. It was a gimmick, and it felt a gimmick at parts, but it did look cool in IMAX in some parts. But this version of, I guess, the Wicked Witch and the Good Witch that we're getting is not based on anything that L. Frank Baum ever did. It's a different author, a more modern author, wrote a series of books, sort of prequels to The Wizard of Oz that are far more adult, which I didn't realize until I bought my daughter the novel of Wicked and started reading it to her and had to do some improv on the fly because those books are filthy AF. But that was then turned into the musical, which has become the phenomenon we know and love. So it's almost like a parallel journey to the original Wizard of Oz in the way that it's come to be. That and much like the original, it has become a sensation. And much like the original Judy Garland playing Dorothy was a revelation, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh!" It's kind of happening with Ariana Grande, even though everyone already knew her. No one, including myself, knew that she was such a good actor. I was really surprised about how phenomenal she is. So it's been a sort of interesting parallel to look at in how they've come about. I'm also curious about, because you haven't come to this from the musical being a thing, what if anything do you know about what comes next? Because Wicked Part 1 is just that. It is Part 1. Do you know anything about what happens in the next movie?
I've kind of been spoiled, I think, a little bit, because again we went down the rabbit hole. So obviously 2 kids watching this film, like, well, how does that line up with The Wizard of Oz? Again, I was trying to explain, well, this is the start of, obviously, Wicked is she's dead. This is the end of The Wizard of Oz, and now Glinda is telling the story of what happened before it. And so the kids sort of understood it, but then we went down that YouTube rabbit hole where people have started picking apart and showing where everything fits and the timelines and stuff like that. So inevitably, I kind of got possibly spoiled on some of the events that will happen in the next film that I was unaware of. So it's like, oh well, it is what it is.
It's going to be wild for anyone who just has seen the films, and I am very curious for how the second film is received, because this one has been really well received. It's by no means a perfect film, and plenty of people have pointed out some of the flaws, I guess, for lack of a better word. But overall, it's more beloved than not. I am curious to see how people respond to the next one, so this one is a prequel. The next film is going to take place concurrently with The Wizard of Oz. So that's the way the musical works. Act 1 is a prequel. Act 2 happens at the same time as the story of The Wizard of Oz. So we catch up. We catch up to Dorothy in the second film. Frustratingly, and this is a side note, but you know how I feel about titles. In the last couple of weeks, the sequel to Wicked Part 1, which was called Wicked Part 2, has been retitled and is now called Wicked for Good. So we now have two films called Wicked Part 1 and Wicked for Good, which means some point they're going to have to retroactively retitle Wicked to just Wicked.
Oh, see,
Because apparently we don't like Part 2. The same thing that has also happened to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and now there is no Dead Reckoning Part 2. You have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and then Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's funny you say that because I never noticed the Part 1 until when the movie started or whatever, because I felt like everything just said
Wicked Part 1.
Oh, it's at least when I was seeing it, I was not seeing the Part 1. Yeah, okay.
No. All the promotional material is just Wicked, and then it's only in the title credits of the film. It says Wicked Part 1.
Okay, okay, gotcha. Because I was like surprised, like 2.5 hours. I'm like, oh, okay, and then like Part 1, I'm like, what?
Well, it is interesting because the stage musical goes for about 2.5 hours for the whole thing. So it's very, very long.
Well, are we spoiling the film if? So you've seen the stage play twice. I mean, I'm sure that yes. I had heard that the stage play has evolved over time, just slight little changes that probably made things a little bit better and work. Go, okay, that doesn't really work. We'll do this. But how much more were we getting in the film than we are in the theatre? Were we getting a lot more exposition to really set these characters up? Or
I mean, if you're comparing Wicked Part 1 to the first act of the stage musical, there's nothing. So in terms of extra things, there's not really anything extra that comes in. There's not extra songs or anything like that, or really any extra set pieces. What we get in the film, as opposed to the stage musical, is the moments between the songs get more time to breathe. Like Glinda and Elphaba first meeting each other and figuring out they don't like each other. You get a chance to them actually sort of not really like each other heaps before we get to the song Loathing. Whereas in the stage musical, that's quite a short, sharp thing, and then bang, we're into that song. And I guess that's just a product of, you can't ask an audience to, unless you're Harry Potter, to sit down and watch 2.5 hours of the first half of the show and then come back the next night to watch the second half. You got to knock it out. And the reason for the songs is because it is a concise way to deliver a lot of information in a short period of time. Whereas in the film, the director, John M. Chu, has obviously gone, no, we're going to do the songs, but also we're going to make the songs a bit longer. We're bouncing around as we tend to do on this show, but things like, one of my biggest gripes with this film is that the song Defying Gravity is like the song of the musical. Yeah. It's the one everyone knows.
I was going to say, that's the one thing I did know. As soon as it came on, I almost was singing it without knowing the song. Like, I'm like, I know this song. It's so,
a phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it finishes Act 1 of the play, just like it finishes the end of Wicked Part 1. And I think the stage version it's perfect. It is famous and beloved for a reason. It is unimpeachable. Idina Menzel sort of originally authored the role and nailed the fucking shit out of it. And it's so good. In the film, they drag that friggin' song out for like an extra 5 minutes of nothing. Like all the stuff where she's falling from the tower and she sees the young version of herself and singing Unlimited again, or when she's singing It's Me. None of that's in the original, and it doesn't need to be in this one, and it's just an excuse to drag it out. Same with the song that takes up what feels like most of the first movie, Dancing Through Life, with that big sequence where Fiyero is dancing in the library and kicking books, and then they go to the party, and then they do the silent dance, and then the two girls become friends, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. It's a long song in the musical. It doesn't take up half the friggin' musical. Like, this song felt like it went for 7 days. So there are little changes they made, and I guess, if you've got the time, do it. What they did do in the film is they made me believe that the Glinda and Elphaba characters come to actually genuinely love each other. And so that meant the end of the film really had a payoff for me that the musical never quite had, because you don't have the time to flesh out the relationship. So at that last bit, where she's like, come with me. No, I can't. And there's meant to be all this sorrow and loss. I've never quite felt it hit. I'm like, of course she's not going to go with you. She doesn't really know you that well. Whereas in the film,
Yeah.
yes. But that's a lot of rambling about the differences between something you haven't seen. As the film stood on its own, are you much of a musical fan in film as it is? Like, not necessarily going to the theatre to see a musical, but if a film is a musical, is that a genre that you have much time for as a rule?
Do you know, I was thinking about that because I knew that would be a question you'd ask, and I kind of, my gut thought or instinct was like, no, I don't like musicals. Like, I'm not going to go like to my local Blockbuster. Not that it exists, or Video Easy. It's on the other side on the video. Oh, I'm doing it the wrong way. Video Easy. To go, and I'm not going to go into the musical section to hire something. But then, ironically enough, again, another movie I saw at a very young age and was allowed to watch, and also had the tape of the soundtrack, Grease, another musical. There's a lot of musicals I've enjoyed in my life. It's just nothing I seek out generally. So when Chicago came out at the cinemas, I was surprised. Like, I saw that very early on. I don't know why. I don't know if it was Renee Zellweger or maybe Catherine Zeta-Jones. I don't know. I just thought I'm going to go see that. That film was
sort of, it was unescapable. Like, everyone I knew saw Chicago.
Yeah.
And no one that I knew liked musicals apart from me. And it was
but
kind of this weird thing.
The crazy thing with Chicago was I never went along like a little sheep. Like, I was probably in that phase where I was going to a lot of films anyway. It was just something that was on the radar that I thought, I don't know why, but I want to see that. And I like how they did it, and obviously got, won quite a few awards. And people are like, hang on, maybe we can do musicals like this. Maybe it can work if you get the right elements together. And then, crazily enough, some of the things you would never even think are musicals. Are kind of still fairly musical, is Team America and South Park the movie, and I'm like, hang on, I do somehow find enjoyment. And then Muppet movies, like anything Muppet
movies, but also Disney movies. Like, we grew up in the era when the golden era of Disney. You're watching Aladdin, you're watching The Lion King, you're watching Little Mermaid. Like, you're watching musicals. Yeah. That's what you're getting. So I guess it's not something I'll gotta go see that musical, but. Do I hate musicals? No, it's probably a misconception. Probably even in my own head. Like, it's a funny one because, again, I've only recently acquired in the last 6 months Team America and South Park the movie on 4K. So go figure. And I was curious to ask you that because I am surprised by the phenomenon that Wicked has become, because I do think that is a response that a lot of film goers have, is if you hear something as a musical, if that's not your jam, most people are like, well, I'm not going to watch that, forgetting that more movies than you think are kind of musicals in a lot of ways. And this is really like I went to see it twice in cinemas. Both times the cinemas were full. I sort of kept an eye on how the box office was tracking in the early days, and then it shot off and there was no point watching anymore. But it seemed like people right out of the gate were going to see this and loving it. It feels a bit like a perfect storm. Like, you had your inbuilt audience of musical lovers. It's been a while since we've had a big Broadway musical adapted into a big feature film with a big budget. So you have that fan base, you have that sort of lust for a big elaborate musical. You have Ariana Grande, who has their fan base built in, who is going to come and see it. You have a truly, I think, spectacular press tour with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande taking point and really kind of wowing everyone.
And
you have Jonathan Bailey.
Yeah.
You have Jonathan Bailey coming in from Bridgerton and bringing that Bridgerton sort of, which is quite a fanatic fan base, bringing them on board. Even little choices like Bowen Yang, who is best known for SNL, but has become quite... in fact, it was announced this morning, Bowen Yang, alongside Rachel Sennett, are going to be the two people announcing the Academy Award nominations for the Academy Awards this year. So quite big time thing. So lots of little smart choices along the way to kind of hit... I mean, I know film studios like to talk about the 4 quadrants that you need to hit. You want your young people, your old people, you want your teens, and you want your kind of adults, and you want to get them all. And damned if this film doesn't do it. Like, you could be 16 years old with a bunch of friends, go and see a movie on a Friday night and see Wicked. You could be 30 years old on a date and go and see Wicked. You could be 80 years old and just wanting to get out of the house and see a movie,
And
you see Wicked. You know, you can have a bunch of mates at any age go and see Wicked. My 10-year-old daughter, you know, and her friends in grade 5 of primary school are going to see Wicked. Like and I can't quite figure out what it is other than this kind of, it sounds horribly cliched, but at least from a marketing point of view, there's kind of something in it for everyone. Like even my son, who he's 5, he had no interest in seeing it in the cinemas. So he didn't come either time. And then inevitably we bought it when it became available on digital because my daughter is obsessed. And he was like, I don't really want to watch that. And she put it on. And within 5 minutes, he was sitting down watching it because he knows all the songs because we played them in the car. And he watched the whole 2.5 hours right alongside her. And then the next day when she's like, can we watch it again? He said, yeah, sure. Which, you know, for a 5-year-old who
that's
isn't
good.
really into it, to be like, yeah, let's go again. So there's something infectious about it. And every time I've watched it, I'm like, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Like it won't go down as, it was very high for me, you know, for last year. In terms of enjoyment, I think part of that is probably I love musical. I think part of it is probably, you know, I had a great time watching it with my daughter. But for such a long movie that is a musical,
It doesn't feel like it's that long.
it's fun. It's a fun get along.
But I do hear what you say. Without having seen the theatre production, so no, you know, basis for comparison, I did think there were probably elements where the music did maybe go, and like you said, that last sequence did feel like it went a bit long and
it's
more
dragged.
drawn out. Whereas I did wonder if I did have that feeling, like you said, that a lot of what's conveyed in the theatre production is through song. So you don't have all the exposition necessarily that they could do in the film. So why you'd have to stretch out the music any longer than you really have to is a little bit bewildering because you're also more screen time, more visuals, more everything. It costs you more money. So you sort of think if you're going to spend more money to build up the character, like you said, it sounds like it was a great payoff because you can understand these two characters not liking each other and like I guess then forming a bond and then having that payoff at the end. It made sense to me, like you're saying, like the way you explained it, like, yeah, it did feel like she wanted to go with her. They wanted to, but she's like, I just can't. And that made sense to me and it worked. So then you do wonder, like, could they have scaled it back to 2 hours or even just 2 hours and 15 minutes by just cutting back some of the... I mean, was there fat to cut off? I don't know. Like you said, I do wonder if that last song did feel like it did, but maybe they were going, look, we're going for this epic ending. I can also understand that too, but...
Yeah, well, I've read a little bit about how there was sort of a little bit of backlash from, I guess, the purists with the transition of Alphaba.
Those damn purists.
There is a big thing in this film where Alphaba starts out as an outcast. You know, she's green. Spoilers: Alphaba is the Wicked Witch, so she's green. She's, you know, the only green person in Oz,
which is ironic, but yeah.
Which is ironic. I always find it a bit funny watching Wicked that everyone is like, she's green, but in the world of Wicked, animals talk. Yeah. Like one of the teachers at Shiz is a talking goat, voiced by Peter Dinklage.
Yeah.
And the students are all like, yeah, goat is our teacher. And that's not weird. But a girl being green will to make people stop short and be stunned. And the world of Oz has munchkins and it has, you know, talking animals, it has talking trees. We learn in Wizard of Oz, you know, the idea that green, like a person having green skin is just so insane you wouldn't know what to do. It's always a bit funny for me.
But is that I hadn't even thought about it like from a 1939 point of view, but is that a bit of a, like, because when I was watching that scene when she first rocks up to Shiz and everyone like freaks out, like she like they look at her like she's a freak and she doesn't belong. I just was thinking race, and I was like, are they trying to make a comment? Again, not having any basis of comparison, not saying, were they trying to like have a bit of a nudge, wink, wink to how people were treated back in the day? It's like, oh, you're in a white world, and the black girl walks in, or the Asian kid or whatever, go, hang on, you don't belong here. And I was like, is that kind of, are they, again, not knowing the theatre, it was like, are they kind of having that thing? It's like, no, well, just because you're a different colour, it doesn't, we are all human and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, I don't know. I was like, was that something new, or is that completely?
It certainly seemed to me like that was something they leaned in more on the film than they do in the musical. In the musical, it's sort of more about you're green, and green is a strange color to be. Whereas in a film, and I think it, again, to its benefit and something that it makes sort of the characters deeper and richer that the stage musical just can't do because it's not really the point. Is they do lean harder into like they react as though it's segregation era. And a black girl has walked into a white school and everyone's like, what? You can't. So that character of Alphabet is very much the outside of the bookish, nerdish, smarter than everyone else, but can't do anything about it because she looks different, kind of classic archetype. And then when she transitions from sort of Alphaba to the Wicked Witch, which is what we see at the end of that, in the stage musical, that is really quite emotional and powerful and dramatic and incredible. Whereas in the film, it's a bit more like the transition you would see in a Marvel movie. It's a bit superhero-fied where, she has to have everything taken away from her and she's lost and there's nothing left. She falls out of the tower and she's plummeting to her death, and then suddenly her superpower activates, and in that moment she transitions. And little things like, not only can she fly now, but her cloak is now 40 feet long, which, it just happens out of nowhere, which looks cool as hell, but really is only there because it looks cool as hell, which is, it's a very superhero thing. She almost has a cape, she's flying, she's like now I am super powered, I'm a super villain kind of thing. So they change the vibe a bit. I get it, this is what people expect from cinema now, and I don't begrudge them that. It did lose a little bit of the emotional impact. I think as an overall experience, it's a curiosity. Like, did you know anything of Cynthia Erivo, who plays Elphaba in this movie? Did you?
Only crazily enough, I'd seen. I wouldn't say negative, but I think leading in, and maybe this is when you had asked about doing it, and I did say the comment because I feel like, unfortunately, before Wicked came out, I think there was something that came out. Someone had just redone. Do you know about this? The poster, the thing with Cynthia in the poster.
Yeah, I remember there was backlash about the way that the poster was altered, and she was very angry about it. But I can't remember the specifics.
No, I can't remember the specifics. I felt like the poster had come out really highlighting her and Ariana as their characters, and then someone had gone and they'd done a tweak of it where they made it look exactly like the theatre poster, which sort of brought Cynthia back a bit. So it wasn't anything against Cynthia. It was just more they wanted to make it look accurate.
There is a very classic poster that is used all the time for Wicked, and you don't change that poster. That's the poster.
So someone had done that, and again, I don't know how high level that was, but it obviously got back to her or something, and then she commented, and then she was obviously upset by that. And again, I haven't researched enough about it, but I know there was some issues there, and then there was something else that I feel like happened. And it was probably in amongst all the stuff where, again, I wasn't really focused on Wicked, so I wasn't paying super amount of attention. So there's stuff going on there, and then all the stuff with Snow White was going on. And so then I was thinking, maybe Wicked's going to be a bust because they spent all this money and there's like issues with toxic fandom and just race and stuff like that. And I was like, but having said that, I had no idea who Cynthia was before this. I just thought, she's an African-American actress that is also a singer, almost like Ariana Grande. And I'm like, she could have been a hip-hop star and I wouldn't have even known, to be honest. But
so she's a musical theatre star, and I didn't realise until after I saw the film. I've actually seen her live when I was in America. I saw her do The Colour Purple on Broadway and thought she was one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. Yeah. So her film credits are small compared to what you would expect, I guess, from someone leading a film of this magnitude. Yeah. But her theatre credits are phenomenal. And then beyond that, you've got obviously Ariana Grande, who's playing Glinda, who most of us know from her pop stuff. I also, as the father of a 10-year-old girl, know her from a Nickelodeon show, I think it is, called Sam and Max or something like that. I can't remember the name. It's like a spin-off of iCarly. I don't know. She's in that as an actor. It's like one of the last things she did before she became a pop star. And I after watching that, I was like, I don't think you can play Glinda. Sorry, champ. And boy, was I wrong. I think she's freaking incredible. I hope she wins the Best Supporting Actress Academy Award because she's
Yeah.
so good.
I'm like you. I was sort of like there was a part of me going into this. So once I knew this was part of the assignment, that I would have to watch it. Some of the little bits I'd seen or the trailer, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then I'm like, that's Ariana Grande, and it's like, yeah, she's a pop star first. It's going to be another one of these pop stars that's tried to be an actor or has got the role because of that, and they look a particular way. But then, having said that, I was like, no, but I'm pretty sure she's good in impersonation. So I went back and before I'd even seen it, I'm like, I knew she was good at doing other singers. And then I went down a rabbit hole with Ariana just looking at her impression stuff. And I'm like, she knocks it out of the park. I'm like, well, if you practice impressions enough, surely you can even you can act. Like, surely at some point, okay, you might not have a huge range. You might not be able to cry on cue, but I feel like you would be able to impersonate the original Glinda if that's what's needed, and or have mannerisms or what. I just thought, yeah, maybe she might work, and then like she fucking blew it out of the park, like unbelievable.
Her SNL performance was what got me. A recent one,
Yeah.
she hosted and was the music guest at SNL, and I watched it and I was like, no, bring it on. You're funny as hell. You're quick. You're good, and you can sing. And even after I got on board, I can't believe how good she was. Some lovely surprise in this movie. Jeff Goldblum is in this movie.
Yes.
As the wizard, which is one of the best bits of casting ever.
Yeah, 100%,
love it.
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh, I love her. I don't know if she's a great casting for Madame Marble. You haven't seen the musical, you wouldn't quite know. It's a slightly odd fit. She's not a singer, so they really had to alter her song. That was one of the big changes. That song is really like
more spoken and not
and because that song it's like the inciting incident in the whole thing. She sings that song. Alphaba starts to believe that maybe she could do something great with her life and maybe she could meet the wizard. And that leads into The Wizard and I, which is this big, brilliant number where she kind of unleashes the possibility of self and yada, yada, yada. But because Michelle Yeoh, as incredibly talented as she is not a musical theatre singer, they changed the song and it lost a lot of its grunt for me. So I don't blame her. I feel like she was just sort of given an impossible situation there, and that is sadly why I think no one, for all the hype that Wicked is getting, no one is really talking about Michelle Yeoh in this film, despite the fact that she's fucking Michelle Yeoh and she's incredible because she's neither Arthur nor Martha, she's not quite what the stage version of the character is, but she's not being given enough to make the film version her own. So she's stuck in this no man's land a bit.
But is that? I don't know, and this is nothing against her, and I understand having big names in your movies and quality actors, and we don't have any. I have no issues with her acting ability, but at what point in casting do you go, okay, we've got Michelle Yeoh, she could do this role, but we've got to get her to sing and make it feel believable, or like you said, have that impact, that strong impact. She can't do it. Either do we get it lip synced or go ADR or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like, just somehow, or you just go, we don't cast her because that's not the right choice. Like you said, Jeff Goldblum's a brilliant choice.
I mean, look, to tag onto that though, his song is also severely like dropped down from the stage version because he's not a singer. I just think that he is so, like, his version of the wizard is different to the stage version, but I think like so incredible and possibly better. It's not as noticeable or it's not as like bothersome. And also his song really means it's hard to talk without spoiling. His song does mean something when you get to the end of the second act. But it's not a transition moment. It's kind of the song before Defying Gravity. Like it's not really, it's like, hey guys, we're going to play this song off our third album that is track number 8. That's a personal favorite. And then we're going to play like our number 1 hit that everyone loves. And then we're going to finish the gig. It's that kind of on the playlist. but it's interesting that they got those two like legendary actors. One of like Michelle Yeoh really recently won a Best Actress Academy Award, and is beloved by I think every person I've ever spoken to, because every time you see her, you're like,
Crouching
fuck
Tiger,
yeah, that's
Hidden
Michelle
Dragon,
Yeoh. Yeah, like whatever it is, you're like, I want to watch Michelle Yeoh do whatever the fuck she wants. That's great. But yeah, I don't know. It's you may not have been as bothered by it because you haven't seen the musical. It was an ill fit for me, and I felt like it did her wrong, and that's what frustrated me.
But well, I guess that's the point. I mean, I noticed it because I'm like, well, this is not naturally her thing, and she's expected to sing, so they've obviously made it, you know, slightly different, or at least get her to almost speak her words a little bit. It didn't feel 100% right, but I thought, well, they've gone with that, and like you said, like it's. How am I to know how much impact that song's supposed to have? But if it's supposed to mean something, then I just feel like, well, then you can't cast someone like that. You've got to, admittedly, you might, in auditions, you go, this person's going to work, but at some point you've got to go, this person's got to sing. Like, for instance, I don't tell this story that often, but I really wanted to play the Scarecrow in my school's production of The Wizard of Oz back in, a long time ago. And I was super confident. Like, I 100% knew Wizard of Oz inside and out. I'm like, oh, this is meant to, and even people and friends that, you know, would never normally give combos like, oh, you're 100% Scarecrow. You are comically and I probably used to copy Jim Carrey a bit too much too, but they're like, no, 100%. They go, you walk in, you get it. But then I got cold feet on even applying for it because they're like, oh, but you got to be able to sing. I'm like, well, I can't fucking sing. And that was the thing. I didn't do it. I regret it. But then I always think the guy that did do it was fantastic and could sing. And so that's the thing. It's like, well, I sometimes think, well, it's a musical. At the end of the day, at its very heart, it's still a musical as well. And it's like, do you have to say, well, maybe this person isn't the right choice? Or we somehow have to manipulate it around to, I don't know. Anyway, maybe that...
She was great, but I think it's an awkward thing. Jonathan Bailey, who I said, you know, is Bridgerton. I've never watched Bridgerton. I had no idea who he was.
Nah. He looked familiar until someone told me Bridgerton. I'm going, oh, well, I don't know that show well enough, but I know that, yeah, okay, lines up. He's
pretty friggin' charming. So, like, as Fiona, he's great. Ethan Slater, who plays Bok, the little ginger-haired guy who's in love with Galinda, sorry. The only thing I really know him from is he played SpongeBob in the SpongeBob, the musical.
Yes.
In the live-action musical, he's that. The other thing that I know him from is that, look, tabloid's going to tabloid, so I don't know the timeline. I choose to believe in him. He was married, he and his wife separated, and now he's currently dating Ariana Grande, which I find hilarious because in the film, his character is obsessed with Belinda and she doesn't give him the time of day. And in real life, they're in love. And the tabloids are saying that he left his wife and child for her and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Look, all I know is in real life, those two are together and they're happy now.
I think
he's great.
When you're on movies, remember Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt did that Mr. and Mrs. Smith? And nothing to see here. Yeah, right.
Dinklage is the Dr. Dillerman, the voice of the goat, Bowen Yang, we talked about. And then the other thing, and this would have meant absolutely nothing to you, but for all of us who have been fans of the stage musical, when they get to the Emerald City and there is a song that is being sung all about the wizard, and two women come out to sing the song about the wizard, the two women who come out,
I do know this, but yes.
Are Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, who were the original Elphaba and Galinda. And when that happened in the theatre, I was sitting in a row of people who were clearly all theatre people. And I grabbed my 10-year-old's arm and I went, oh my gosh. And she went, what? And then I leaned over and whispered. And as I was whispering, like, that's the original Galinda and Elphaba from the play, I heard like 14 other people in the theatre having the same conversation with people who obviously weren't theatre lovers. Yeah. But the guys all in the row next to me were all like grabbing each other like, oh my God.
Yeah, so
I did not know that was coming. That was one of the best cameo experiences I've
ever
had.
One of them I didn't recognise, but one of them I had because she seems to turn up in a lot of movies recently that I've watched. I think when we did the Christmas list last year or the year before, when we're watching Christmas movies or Hallmark movies, she turns up
So
in a
you,
lot of those.
you're talking about the shorter, blonder of the two. That's Kristen Chenoweth, who does
Yeah.
a lot of Christmas movies, Hallmark movies, those kind of things.
Yes. So
But it's a bag.
I was sort of familiar because I feel like she's popped up in a lot of stuff I've watched recently in the last 2 or 3 years. And then, so I knew who she was. And then when I did go down the Wicked rabbit hole, I think prior to watching the movie, I may have watched the video or something, and I saw her, and I'm like, oh, I know her. Like, it was showing some of the stage play. I'm like, oh, I know her. And then when she popped up, I'm like, I get it. That's a little, like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Easter egg.
Idina Menzel, you would know even if you don't know, as the father of a daughter. She's the voice of, not Elphaba, she's the voice of, oh my God, I can't remember her name. This is
We're gonna watch
Elsa.
pause.
She's the voice of Elsa in Frozen.
Oh, okay.
Idina Menzel, you would know, even if you don't know, you know her as the father of a daughter. She's the voice of Elsa in the Frozen animated feature film that became a phenomenon. So you close your eyes and think of Elsa's voice, and that is Elphaba / Idina Menzel. So she's also popped up in other stuff. Really weirdly, she's in Enchanted, the Amy Adams film, but she doesn't sing. Very odd choice to cast Idina Menzel. She also, if you've seen Uncut Gems, the Adam Sandler masterpiece, she's Adam Sandler's wife in that film and does a phenomenal role. I love Idina Menzel. She is a perfect human being. Leave her alone. She was married to Taye Diggs for a very long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, love, and that moment, and this again will mean nothing to you, but the guy who opens the little gate and says, "The wizard will see you now." His name is Stephen Schwartz, and he's the man who wrote the Wicked musical. So it's that whole sequence is like basically the director going, and now here's one for all the theatre gays. I didn't forget you. And out comes everyone who's been involved in Wicked, and everyone goes, "Oh, it's them." It was an incredible moment as a lover of the thing, and also a funny moment when I think about it for people who have no concept of what that was. Just watching the movie, and be like, "Why? Who are these chicks? And why are they singing? Who's that dude? And what's going on? Just go to the bloody wizard already." And one of the most significant things that has happened to a theatre lover's life means absolutely nothing to the person next to them. Very funny moment. Something I am curious about for you, because you said you watched it with your daughter. I had no idea that this was a thing, but I've heard a lot of people complain with showing this to their kids that the whole flying monkey sequence is too scary in this movie. Were you or your child at any point worried that this is that thing is scary?
I don't think so, but I can understand that. I think you just don't understand what can trigger or upset kids. I've learned that very quickly, that some kids, one of your children could be really okay with blood, and any side of potential blood, another child could get very upset, or something's a little bit, for whatever reason. Like my son really wants to watch Jaws, whereas my daughter, who's older, has a fear of Jaws and doesn't want to watch any shark-related movie ever. So, and I mean, that's the thing. It's like you just don't know when it's safe to put a particular movie on for kids, because you think, oh, yeah, I'll watch it at this age, it should be fine. But, there was no distress in my household that I recall.
I mean, I think if you're scared of the flying monkeys in Wicked, you're scared of the flying monkeys in Wizard of Oz. They're just as freaky.
But are you talking about when they start to pop the wings, or because that's
when they transition, and then that whole sequence when she's running down the hallway and they're crashing in through all the windows, and it's all.
Look, I get it. I can imagine some kids, and this is the thing. Maybe if they haven't seen The Wizard of Oz and they don't have that context, then there's the possibility that could be a bit. Flying monkeys. Wouldn't you be scared of a flying monkey? Jeez.
Nah, I got one tattooed on my leg. I love flying monkeys. I wish they were real.
Until they start throwing flying shit at you, then
All right, then I might change my mind.
Yeah. No. Look, I had no issues with it. I'm just trying to recall. Was there anything you talked about the book being a little bit more naughty?
It's very sexual.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like, was there stuff that was in this movie, or was it pretty clean? Because I'm sure
this movie is very, very clean. There's really not, and in the stage musical as well. There's really nothing There's a bit of a nod to some, hanky panky in the opening
Oh yeah, actually
of
that was the only thing that
movie.
I think was remotely gone. Oh, geez, am I going to have to explain this to say that wifey's cheated with somebody else and they've had a green baby? So well, maybe don't do that. Yeah. Anyway, no, I think it was overly pretty safe. I think they
Yeah,
were smart.
it's
If they played it safe enough that it's
absolutely,
accessible for everyone, then that makes sense too. So
yeah, and it is. The, the kind of the vibe of the film is, I'm I found a little bit confusing if you're not a fan of the original. And I think that's the thing that's sort of most stuck on this is like,
okay,
I guess I'm curious, do you have to have seen the musical to fully embrace and understand the film? And obviously not, because not everyone who's seen this at cinema has, and it's a box office smash. But just things like it is simultaneously a film about, the power of friendship, and the way that it can be redemptive and lovely and save you. But it's also a film that is about oppression and the rights of the oppressed. There's a weird B story about the animals are being oppressed
yes,
and silenced and taken away. That is definitely given more time in the film than in the stage
yeah,
musical. But even the stage musical, it's always been this weird thing where it's like, what the hell is that whole fucking animal rights thing that kind of goes away in the second act? And it does go away. I guess it is designed to be the reason that Elphaba feels compelled to go to the
yeah,
wizard. And
yeah.
but if you were to say like, I guess like if you were to say what is Wicked about, what would you say this film is about?
That's a good question. I just
It's
always
it's it's,
well,
it's
I
not
went
that
in
easy, is
going
it?
well. I again, if it's a bit like we talked about another prequel to a franchise that we saw and we talked about recently, Furiosa. Like that's a prequel to Mad Max, and that neither here nor there whether it deserves to be a thing that exists or not. But I went into this movie going, okay, well, this is the movie adaptation of the very successful theatre play, worldwide smash hit theatre play, and it's a story, a prequel to the original Wizard of Oz movie. I'm assuming, and that's all I knew, and I just thought it was an extended take on how the Wicked Witch became wicked, and I sort of, I guess there was that. I guess, again, pop culture, not necessarily, like, obviously I had not seen the stage play, but things you sort of learn over time. I always took it as the Wicked Witch probably wasn't really truly wicked. It was just maybe she was pushed that way. And it's a bit like the Anakin thing in Star Wars. It's like, well, Vader wasn't always evil. He was a good kid at heart and, made some poor choices and or whatever, or was pushed a certain way. And I sort of, that's how I went into the movie. That's what I thought it was going to be about. It was going to be the Good Witch and the other Good Witch were good friends, and something went awry, and she became bad, and that's all I sort of knew. So, sorry, what was the question? I just
I guess the question was like, I said, Leo, what is this film about? I guess the more concise way of saying is like, what do you think, or did you think that the film Wicked has any themes? Like, did you pick up that like they were
no. Well,
trying to say things?
Well, I think there's a lot of themes like you were talking about. Like, I mean, the trigger point for Elphaba is the animals being silenced, and I still think that's very much, a world issue where people are silenced or phased out, or for whatever reasons, someone else comes in and they go, well, we're in power, you are to be silent, or we will shun you off to another place and you can be quiet. Then you have her being obviously green, which is the original character, so it's not a change or anything. But again, this whole almost like look back at how society, or even society can still be now, but this race divide of generally you got a population of white people, and especially in America, the segregation back in the day. I mean, the 60s and 70s, still some black people couldn't go into particular cafes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to talk. I have no experience with that stuff, so I won't pretend that I know all the states and the dates and all that sort of stuff where that happened and when things started to change. But there's a lot of themes going on in this film, but I think at its core, I think it's about there's difference, but overcoming that difference and being good friends and, you know, coming together as people and treating everyone fair and equal. And then obviously then something happens where then you've got someone that's also in power that really has, you know.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of the
Yeah.
underlying theme that comes up, particularly in the film, is power and the abuse of it, I
Yeah.
suppose. But it's I don't know, it feels a bit confused for me. Like, if you're looking at beyond, you know, this is a story of how the Wicked Witch came to be known as the Wicked Witch. If you were actually like, okay, yeah, but what's, you know, that's just the gist. Like, what's the movie about? It did feel a little bit confused to me, particularly on repeat watching. Like, what are we actually talking about here? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What is beyond the kind of the hook? And I still find it a little higgly. But, you know, fuck me, who cares? Because this movie currently is sitting on like 7.5 or 700. I don't know how to say it. $700.5 million. It's on its way to making $1 billion, and it's probably going to. Most recently, you know, in America was Martin Luther King Day holiday, so January 20th. The movie still made $926,000 in a day. In its, where are we at now?
Yeah, when did it come out?
So it's been out for 60 days, so for 2 months. So we're now 2 months into release, and it's still making almost $100,000 in a day domestic. That's, you know, that's the kind of numbers that keep you ticking over to make real money, getting towards $1 billion. It's a phenomenon, and it's gonna just keep going. It's a juggernaut. Do you have any, based on the first one? This is just my own curiosity. Do you have any predictions for the next one? Like, for example, we know that from the opening song that Alpha's mum was rooting around. Do you have any predictions for who Elphaba's real dad is?
I think I've been spoiled on that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, right, great.
I do believe it may be someone in a position of power.
Well, on that, with the exception of Glinda, the Wizard, and Elphaba, and this may be something you're spoiling them, do you think that there are any other classic Wizard of Oz characters that we're going to see in the next one?
Yes. I think people will transition to become characters that we do know and love.
You have been spoiled like a motherfucker then.
Oh yeah, I tried to avoid it, but it was kind of like I kind of like they started talking about the timeline, and I didn't even think about some of these characters becoming other characters. So, but I know obviously the lion cub they took to rescue is obviously the Cowardly Lion. Prince Charming becomes the Scarecrow, and Bok becomes a Tin Man. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. And obviously,
spoilers.
Spoilers. Yeah, we'll have to retroactively put in spoilers for the next one. It was really funny for me. I was talking to a friend who was in your position. He just went and saw the movie, no idea about the musical, and I caught up with him afterwards, and I was like, "Oh yeah, man, what did you think?" He's like, "Yeah, really good." And one of the things is like, I'm really interested to find out who the Wicked Witch of the East is. And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, the Wicked Witch of the East. We got to find out who that is." Because
it's a sister.
You know, yeah. And I was like, "Who is the Wicked Witch?" He's like, "Well, it's the Wicked Witch of the West sister." I'm like, "And who do we meet in the first Wicked film?"
Yeah.
And he was like, "Oh," but people are missing these things. Like, people don't connect that if the Wicked Witch of the West's sister is the Wicked Witch of the East, then Elphaba's sister Nessa Rose must be the Wicked Witch of the East. So
see, this is the other thing.
A lot of stuff is set up.
Yeah, and again, maybe being a bit of a fan and a bit of a fan and knowing a lot of backstory to the original Wizard of Oz. Like, I knew straight away as well. Like, you kind of tell because she had the socks on at one point. And I said, like, that kind of, like that's quite a famous thing with the legs under the house. And then the slippers, which the problem is the ruby slippers was something that they wanted to do for the original movie because they were doing it in color. But also the weird thing is that people forget. I'm pretty sure there's something to do with rights about ruby slippers. Like MGM own that as a thing. That's why I think.
And they're also not in the book from memory. The ruby slippers aren't a thing.
Yeah, because I don't. Yeah,
It's
they
just
don't think
the
they're.
movie.
Yeah, they don't. You're right. I think they're always silver slippers or something along those lines. The movie changes to ruby, but they also own the rights to it, so that's why I think Return to Oz never mentioned them as ruby slippers as well. I think I'm vaguely on that all of a sudden. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. Yeah, obviously they've gone back to the sort of almost like silver/diamond encrusted looking slippers, which is not the same. So I can get if people aren't super familiar with Wicked and vaguely know or have a passing knowledge of the original, then they're going to go, well, they probably wouldn't maybe put two and two together, but you kind of think if someone's green and they're dressed like the Wicked Witch and they're going to become the Wicked Witch, their sister, it's probably a bit of a giveaway. But I can also, but having said that, I can kind of see if you really go in really blind,
Well,
she doesn't look remotely evil at all. That you go, well, how would she be the Wicked Witch of the East? Like, unless she gets shafted by management. But yeah,
I have a prediction, and I still haven't asked you how you felt about this movie as a whole, but I do have a prediction that because you are a Wizard of Oz fan, I think regardless of how you felt about this movie, I think you will be the type of person who will enjoy the second movie even more.
Yep.
Because it does take place in currently. A lot of stuff that's set up in the first one, if they do that like they do in the stage musical, is paid off. Not just for the setup in the first movie, but it's also paid off for being a fan of Wizard of Oz. There's a lot of things that happen and you're like, oh shit, that's really cool that they managed to figure out how to do that and bring these two worlds together. I think it's gonna blow a lot of people's minds. The stuff that they wind up doing in the next one. Which I guess brings me to, what did you think of this movie? What did you think of Wicked as a non-stage version goer, as someone who doesn't gravitate towards musicals as a rule, but who does have reverence for Wizard of Oz? How did you feel about this film overall?
Yeah, it blew me away. It's I was glad I watched it. Like I said, though, you sort of nitpicked a couple of things you didn't like, and there was probably similar things that I was like, but 2.5 hours flew by. Again, we already touched on it, but Ariana Grande just killed it. Like,
my God, she's good in this movie. She's so good.
I think everyone was a lot of fun. I guess actually this is the one thing, and I understand the tone of the film and the way people speak can't be the same as 1939. But I did think, like, Shiz University and the way they speak, almost like Mean Girls speak, or just the way kids speak today, it makes perfect sense, but that does not line up. That's the one thing. If they're trying to kind of lean into trying to make it be 1939 Kansas, that doesn't actually work. It just doesn't.
They're not trying to make it Kansas. They're trying to make it Oz, and Oz is
sorry,
its own beast.
But what I'm saying is, like, the way we speak in 2025 or 2024 is quite a bit removed from almost 80 years ago or whatever. So I think that's the only thing when they're watching the way some of the characters were acting and they want to be friends with Glinda and like just the way they talked, and I was like, I was very, very 2024. And again, I've got no issue with that. It's just if you were trying to line the movies up, I did feel like there was an effort that there was sort of this sort of continuity. It seemed like they were not making things exactly the same, but like there was still we're not going to go out and out go, this is going to be exactly the same as 1939 with Judy Garland, but we're going to still make it feel like it's the same world enough that they're not that removed from each other. But I mean, look, it didn't offend me. It was just a funny sort of to think about. Well, it's like it doesn't. Yeah, again, the way people talk is completely different. So I thought it was funny, but it felt natural that these kids in Oz are speaking the way the TikTok language, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's its own beast, and I guess that's good, and that's what you want. It's it's thrilling for me that this movie has become the thing it was. It's tipped to be nominated for a slew of. It's already been nominated for a slew of awards, but it's tipped to be nominated for a slew of Academy Awards. Most notably, I think for me, is the fact that Ariana Grande is hotly tipped to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress and is in with a pretty good chance to get the win. The film will almost certainly be nominated for Best Picture, and then possibly Best Lead Actor for Cynthia Erivo, possibly Best a Screen Adaptation. I think is the one it's in for, and then below the line, costume, makeup, set, all those things are the little things. So it's going to be a big presence, which I mean, I personally love, because the better that big, elaborate Broadway stage musical adaptations do, well, then the more we're going to get them. And that's great for someone who loves stage musicals like I do. Are you going to watch part two? Are you going to watch Wicked?
100% now. Yeah, I'll see the cinemas first night.
You're converted. You're Wicked Hive now. It's on. It's gonna have
look, I don't know. I'm not going to go out and buy T-shirts and paraphernalia, but I definitely will be going to. I know a child that wants to go, so
my house is nothing but Wicked T-shirts and paraphernalia now. That's all my daughter wanted for Christmas. We have backpacks, we have duffel bags, we have T-shirts, we have dolls, we have books, we have journals, we have hats, we have man, it's kudos to the marketing team and the licensees who got hold of stuff and churned it out, because anything you could want.
We got to make sure we get to the premiere. We've got connections now. We've got connections.
Let's go.
We should make that happen.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of a fancy popcorn box for the sequel. I don't think they did one for the original.
No. Actually, it's funny you bring that up, because I was always going to say that. I thought, do I leave that outside the podcast or not? So, popcorn boxes or tubs and all that sort of stuff has been big. I reckon even just before COVID. It's like, especially the big movies, they're putting out some sort of thing. Obviously in the States it's a bigger, there's more people and what have you. Like Scream brought out some great stuff, like you obviously didn't come out here. The last couple of Ghostbusters films, the Aliens, Deadpool and Wolverine. There's been some Dune. There's been some amazing stuff in the States. We're not all
I saw a trailer today. A trailer for the Captain America Brave New World popcorn bucket. Not for the movie. There is a trailer with Anthony Mackie in it, just for the popcorn bucket, exclusive to AMC, which is the Captain America shield. And on the back is a collapsible popcorn bucket. That is your popcorn bucket, which looks like the most impractical thing. But I was stunned that we are now getting trailers just for the popcorn bucket.
It's got out of control. It has got out of control. And now that I think about it, was it pre-COVID? When did Rise of Skywalker come out? That year. So
that was pre-COVID. Yeah, that was.
So Rise of Skywalker had their bundle deal, and the bundle you get, the popcorn bucket was C-3PO's head. All right.
Oh wow! All right, yeah.
So that opened up. It was a big, decent size. It was like almost, skull size. Open up, but then they had a special that you could buy, but it was a pre-order, and it was a big R2D2, which had the popcorn at the back.
I remember that.
But then the liquid in top, or the Coke in the top. Which yes, I've got both, of course.
Amazing.
But I sort of thought, that's going to go on the wane. So obviously in America, they get a lot more of that stuff. They've got more franchises over there. They've got a lot more people. People buy that shit up, right? In Australia, the two major franchises we have are Village and Hoyt. They alternate between sometimes stuff that's coming out. I've noticed there has been an uptake in the last probably 12 to 18 months now that COVID's out. People are starting to go to the movies. A lot of bits and pieces are coming out for the movies. I'm surprised how much is coming out, because I'm like, I don't know if they're really selling it all. But I can tell you for a fact, at least in the two local Village place I went, not long after Wicked was out, they literally had the Wicked different box sets, or the different sets you could get, the different buckets, sold out. So even the Wicked stuff was flying off the shelves of cinemas. And someone you went to uni with and good friends with, Eden Porter, who
Hi, Eden.
Who was on Survivor, and that's how I know him, but also manages a few Village cinemas would probably back me up and say, yeah, Wicked was one of the first things that was sold out, because I know they will get a bunch of Gladiator Cups or Beetlejuice. I know they've had a few things out, and they'll have it, but then if there's a little bit of excess stock, you'll be able to get it 2 months later at a markdown price, because they're like, shit, we're going to get rid of this stuff. So, but yeah, Wicked, was gone like that. So, yeah.
It's a juggernaut. It's not going to stop, and it's not going to. The only thing that's going to stop Wicked Part 1 is Wicked Part 2 or Wicked for Good. And then we're going to get a whole bunch of different merch that, I mean, I Wicked came out Christmas time. I had to get nothing but Wicked stuff for my daughter for Christmas. And Wicked Part 2 is coming out Christmas time. And guess what I'm going to have to do at the end of this year, Christmas time?
Well, so, I think that's going to be on our list too. So, yeah.
Yeah, welcome to the club. It's great. Now I'm so thrilled. I'm overjoyed that you enjoyed the film and that you're looking forward to the next one. Then it got you on board, because when you said, "All right, I'm going to watch it," I was like, "Oh man, I'm nervous." Like, it's a big commitment. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes the movie runs for. It's not like you can just sit down and smash out 90 minutes and go to bed. And it also, I was aware that, like, if you watched it and your children were in earshot, it did open the door, particularly for your daughter, to suddenly be like, what's this now? And then Wicked is your life, and that is a...
Okay, so I'll give you a quick breakdown, and I know we don't want to stretch this podcast any more than we need to, but so when you had said it, I was like, how am I going to see this movie? So I threw it out, I threw the bait out. It wasn't taken well, and I was like, well, what's Wicked? And then when kids don't really know, even if you can show them a trailer or whatever, if they don't pick it up in the first 3 or 4 seconds, they're like, no, there's priorities. There was Paddington in Peru. There was Mufasa. Well, this is the thing, because there's so many kids stuff that come. Mufasa was on the list. Sonic 3, Moana 2, and Paddington in Peru. They were the locks. That, like, no, we've got to see these movies. So it's kind of like, well, Wicked was down the pecking order. If you don't know what it is, it's very hard to get sometimes a kid to just even give something a chance. So that was problem one. So then it was like, well, how am I going to see this movie for the podcast in a time when, if I could take 2 to the cinemas, I'd do it, and then go, I had a fun time, I can do a podcast. Doesn't work. So then what's the next chance? Well, then, like you said, it'd been out for a little while, and then I just happened to be flicking on Amazon Prime, and like, it came up with the big Wicked, banner, and it was like rental. And I was like, $5.99 for 48 hours or whatever. Or, you watch it, start it, you got 48 hours. But I think it was one, when I think they timestamp the rentals too, so you've got like only 4 days to watch it, sort of thing.
No, you get 30. You get 30 days.
Oh, anyway.
Once you have your cash, you got 30 days, but once you press play, you got 48 hours to finish.
Yeah, okay, well, maybe that's it. Anyway, so I thought, well, I got to watch it. So I made the mistake of watching it late, very late at night, and it was like 2 a.m. and I was like halfway through or maybe 3/4 of the way through. And I'm like, I'm amped to keep watching, but I know I have to get up early in the morning as well. I was like, I'm just going to have to stop and come back to it. Come back the next day, but I need to watch it, and there's kids around. And I said, look, I'm watching this movie, so it's not like I'm watching Under Siege 2 or Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm watching a musical. It's kid-friendly as far as I've watched so far. And, of course, glued to the TV, and it's like trying to explain and catch the kids up. And then it was like, do you want to watch from the start? And they're like, yeah, okay. I said, well, I'm almost finished. We're going to watch the end, and you can go back to the start. And then that's pretty much what happened. It was like, get to the end, I'm done, put it back to the start, and get other stuff done. So
good luck, guys. Now you're in the Wicked crew. You're on. Incredible. This is what a way to start the year. Could not be further from where I thought we'd kick off after an every podcast. So I'm excited. I'm thrilled for the year of sequels and prequels and remakes to come. If this is where we're jumping off on anything of Wicked is good, who knows where we can go from here. This is the slates are starting to get released in dribs and drabs. We're already saying we are going to be inundated with sequels and requels and prequels and everything all over again.
Yep.
Last year was a big year for sequels.
Big year.
I don't know if we're going to hit that, but man, already the early slate, even the films that I'm like, oh, that sounds good, and then I read about it and it's a remake, like Spike Lee has announced his next film. I think it's called Highest numeral 2 lowest. So highest to lowest. Denzel Washington's in it. I think A$AP Rocky, Ice Spice, a weird cast at the outset. But whatever, man. Like Spike Lee's back. He's working with Denzel. I'm in. And then I read about it, and a remake of Akira Kurosawa's High and Low.
Okay.
So still really excited. But I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Even the original sounding ones with the greats coming out, and be like, yeah, we're gonna it's probably a remake or a sequel. So it's gonna be a lot for us to talk about this year.
There will be.
And it sounds like we're going to be ending our year. I'm being preemptive here, but it sounds like we're going to be ending our year talking about Wicked Part 2, and that's going to bookend 2025.
And I'm not angry about it.
Not at all. No, I'm kind of pumped. I am very pumped to see what Wicked Part 2 does for you. When you finally get the payoff, you have to wait a year for the payoff to see what's coming.
Well, it's better than 3 years.
That's it. At least we've got a firm release date.
Yeah.
Man, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything else we can say about this film.
Well, I guess on that note, not all sequels suck.
Oh!
Hey, sequel suck fans.
By definition alone, they're inferior films.
I almost sequel quick remake. A quick warning.
Sequels suck.
This episode is spoilers.
Suck.
Before the movie screen 60 over.